that great. Thank you, Steve. So I want to take you back to a moment in time about 18 years ago, exactly half of my life ago, when I sat down in a dark, cold computer lab at Baylor University in front of just 1 out of 10 computers on campus that was blessed with something truly magical, something that only Baylor as an institution could have afforded versus a student like me on a budget of ramen noodles and coffee. And that magical thing was Photoshop. And that magical moment was the first time I was ever introduced to Adobe software. And little did I know, introduced to a company that would truly change my life and my career forever. And soon after Photoshop, I found my way to Dreamweaver. And then one epic day, my junior year, my own fearless journalism professor, Brad Owens, introduced our editing class to the layout glory of the newly released Adobe InDesign. We had suffered for years at the hands of a product that starts with a Q and rhymes with dork, not an accident. And then InDesign came along to save us all. Adobe was reinventing the entire idea of how digital stories could and would be told for the next decade. And ultimately, Adobe became a career growth catalyst, leading the digital marketing revolution. So because of that experience, Adobe was also the company that led me to discover my truest passion, marketing. Adobe guided me unknowingly at that time to my one thing. It created software that was not only mission critical and game-changing, but immersive and actually enjoyable, the kind of thing you can get lost in for hours deep into a passion project, all with a smile on your face. And in the last nearly 2 years as CMO of Marketo, I was often asked, how did you set yourself apart early in your career? And having no idea that this very stage is one I'd ever be standing on, the answer has always been Adobe. Adobe empowered marketers like me and so many of you in this room today to connect and to engage more effectively with any audience through any medium. And for Adobe, I was willing to fight, to go to procurement budget battle every single year. And by the time I was 25, I confidently asserted to every manager who had the pleasure of having me as an employee that without Adobe, I simply could not do my job. And the truth was, I couldn't. But Adobe is for creatives, they would say, not marketers. But what Adobe and I both knew is that in the era of digital marketing transformation, the need to take ownership over the power of the stories we tell has made those two roles often one and the same. And I recently asked many of you about the first time you were introduced to Adobe as well, and so many of your experiences echoed mine. You use phrases like change the trajectory of my entire career, or even changed my life. And the funny thing was, I recognized those answers. They sounded familiar. Why? Because if you replace the word Adobe with Marketo in many of your stories, the experience often still rings true. Marketo has been a career catalyst for revenue-centric marketers for a decade, just as Adobe has been throughout the digital marketing revolution end-to-end. And for years, Adobe and Marketo have built software to serve the needs of the marketer better than anyone in the world. Mission critical, can't do your job without it, willing to go to budget battle to fund it kind of software. And both turn marketing into ground zero for growth. Sitting in that computer lab long ago, discovering Clone Stamp, cue the angels singing, for the first time, I never in my wildest dreams imagined I'd be here today introducing you to the CMO whose work profoundly impacted my own career, from Baylor all the way to this stage. In just 6 months at Adobe, she has welcomed me and my entire team with open arms and inspired us to do even more to serve you with everything we have. She is also the shining example of a CMO who has defined what it looks like to boldly lead her team and Adobe through their own transformation journey, time and time again, just as she shared with all of us yesterday. Her work over 12 years at Adobe has been an inspiration to any marketer you will meet around the world and will one day be taught to every student in marketing. And today, we are extremely lucky to be those students, if only for just a few moments, in her classroom. So Marketing Nation, please join me in giving a warm welcome to Adobe CMO, Ann Lewnes. So great to have you here.
Thank you for this.
I know we have a lot of fans of you in this audience
Very
today.
kind words. Thank you.
Yes. So to kick things off, I mentioned I asked Marketing Nation, and now I want to ask you something similar. What was your first memory of Adobe, and why did you decide to come to this company?
Yeah, so I always thought of Adobe as this incredible creative company, and I was coming from the semiconductor business, and so pretty much anything seemed better. But I loved working at Intel. I worked there 20 years, and I had always had this kind of, desire to be at a more creative company. And so obviously Adobe, I was very used to the tools. I had always been on the creative side of the business, more of a brand marketer. I used Acrobat every single day and still do. I'm a power user. So I just had this great perception of the company.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, so as you know, our theme has been the fearless marketer. And I wanted to ask you, and this doesn't have to do with marketing, what is the most fearless thing you've ever done?
Oh,
well, it's a story you can tell.
Yeah. I mean, I'm kind of a risk taker in general, and I'll just quote my boss, Shantanu, who says that there are flag planters and there are road builders. And the world's kind of divided into both, and you need both. And I would say I'm probably more of a flag planter, I have a vision and intuition of what is possible. And then I surround myself with the best people in the world who can help build the road to that. But I think the craziest thing I probably ever did was move from New York City to Silicon Valley, 30 years ago. I got my Honda Civic and I drove cross country. I had 2 roommates who were living out in Silicon Valley, and we were talking about, it was the great unknown then. 30 years ago is not what it is today. And I slept on their couch. I didn't have a job. I had no plan. And I got 2 jobs, one at Sunset Magazine. I was a journalism major, political science major. I had always been kind of a little bit techie. I went to a scientific high school. But, I was hoping to be a reporter. And I ended up working at Intel because my dad said, oh, you should work at the company. The company, meanwhile, was not doing particularly well. And we were a billion-dollar company, but struggling. But I went there and I said, you know what? I think I could do something here. These people don't really know how to communicate. It's very technical. Didn't know really how to communicate to consumers. And so we had this crazy idea to make a campaign that would create pull for microprocessors in computers, which at the time was just the craziest thing in the whole world. But we did it. I stayed there 20 years. I left when it was a $40 billion company. Wow. And so I think that's where I gained my appreciation for tech, but also how marketing can really create, a whole new reputation, perception of a company.
That's amazing. Well, so some would say that being at one company for 20 years or at Adobe and taking them through so many transformations that you have, like you have here for 12 years, is fearless in itself, and your tenure is impressive. And what advice would you give to other aspiring CMOs who are seeking that same kind of brand prestige that you've built here, as well as time in the chair to actually make some of those transformations possible?
Yeah, I mean, focus on results. That's pretty much, in the end, that's how you're going to be evaluated. And, when we first started, and Shantanu and our team, really, a lot of us started at the same time. Yeah. And he, obviously had this great vision to take us into the cloud from a packaged software company, which, again, very outlandish idea, but I get really turned on by doing something kind of crazy. And so I think all of us got so motivated by what was possible that we just put our nose to the grindstone. We said we're going to make it happen. And we used data, and from a marketing perspective especially, in order to quantify why digital marketing was the right thing to do, we just had to really provide a lot of substantiation and evidence constantly on what the value was, what is the media performing, how much traffic are you getting to the website, very detailed stuff nonstop. And I think the results are really what matter most.
Yeah, that's great advice. So when you wake up in the morning, and for most CMOs, that's at 4 in the morning, when we wake up thinking about what are we going to be doing and managing that week with our team, but what are the metrics that are top of mind for you when you're walking into the office every day?
Yeah, so I sleep with my phone next to my bed. well, actually in my bed, which I would not recommend. But probably one of the first things that I look at every day is web traffic.
Yeah.
And and if you were here a couple days ago and you heard Shantanu talk about our data-driven operating model, the first phase of our model is really around bringing people into the funnel. And all the media that we do brings people to adobe.com. We have over 9.2 billion visitors per month per year to adobe.com. And so the traffic is really the origination point for everything. You come to this site, you try something, you buy something, you come back and you understand how to use those products, and then you renew. So traffic is kind of the first step, and so that's probably the thing I'm most obsessed about.
That's great.
Across B2B and B2C.
Well, and you do that very well, obviously, with a lot of consumer products that Adobe's been incredibly successful with over the years. But we also have a great B2B business as well. And so
and now it's better.
I know, right? So let's talk about that. What excites you most about adding Marketo to the portfolio?
Using Marketo. So, yeah, I mean, I just remember my team, we were so excited about this acquisition. And you know, we call ourselves Customer Zero inside Adobe because we are, you know, first and foremost, we're all practitioners. And so we use everything in Creative Cloud. We use everything in Experience Cloud. We find a company that we think is, you know, probably going to help us fill out our solutions even more. And we go to Shantanu and we say, hey, what about this company? So, I mean, Marketo has been a dream for us. And the second I told my B2B team that we were acquiring them, they were like, oh my God, when's the implementation? And so we are almost through our implementation. It's been record fast, and thanks to Sarah and Steve, who have really helped us get it in place. And I think this quarter we're going to actually get up and running. But you know, I think this is obviously a testament to all of you in this room. This is the best B2B marketing solution, bar none, and we're excited to get going. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Give me those leads.
Well, so last question. When you think about the technologies and trends that are out there, constantly emerging, constantly changing, what excites you most that's on the horizon?
Probably two things, video and voice. So video, we're Adobe. Obviously, we have a history in this space. We have great tools and technology. And I think, you know, the most effective thing we do right now across every media type is definitely video. Short form, long form. We have put together an amazing team that does everything that you see up on the screen. And we just find it's the most engaging, the most compelling, and converts extremely well. So we're big on video. I would say voice is the other very exciting thing. And you know, I think of my parents who literally just started using a smartphone this year, and my mother finally being able to like check things, you know, hey Siri, can you order DoorDash? And you know, I think of even, you know, seniors being able to use voice to do the most simple kind of tasks, and for us, helping our users through voice-activated functions in our products. So I think voice is probably the biggest thing.
That's amazing. Well, Ann, thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
Marketing Nation, let's give it up one more time for Ann Lewnes.